Our guest this morning on the phone lines. Always like to catch up and see what's happening over with the good folks over at the RNC. The RNC Deputy Communications Director, Cassie Smedile, joining us here on the Chad Hasty Show. Good morning. How are you today?
Good morning. It's great to be with you. I am well. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Appreciate you joining us today. There's never a shortage of things to talk about when it comes to the political world. I want to start off and we'll get to the good news for the RNC a little bit later on, some big fundraising numbers, but I want to get your opinion on a couple of things. The last few days, you've got Beto O'Rourke, who's not going to win the nomination, but he's angry Beto 5.0. And he's going around and telling people that America was founded on racism and that America is racist. Kamala Harris yesterday, who, she's in the top four, I guess, of Democrat candidates. She's saying that the United States has stolen land from the Native Americans. This is after she got the endorsement of a Native American tribe. It seems like to me that the Democrats just love to trash this nation right now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you hit the nail on the head. In lieu of any ideas from them, or reasonable ideas, or ideas that they can get a real following on, all they talk about are their radical leftist proposals, or it's the victimhood, it's the name-calling, identity politics of today's Democrat Party. And they're all a part of it. There's no exception. It's not like, I'm old enough to remember a time when Bernie Sanders sat by himself in the United States Senate. Nobody co-sponsored his bills. Everything he talked about was radical leftist socialist Bernie. And now you've got Joe Biden, who's thought to be the moderate, far from it, saying Bernie Sanders' brand of socialism is good enough for all of us. And now apply that to anything, as you name it. One of them says the president's a racist, they all jump on board. One of them says that we care more about you than the president, they all jump on board. And every single proposal goes to the far left extremists. Just right now, I'm actually looking at a document we're going to send out later today because the Democrats are in Iowa today and they're going to be talking to unions. Meantime, their government takeover of health care, Bernie Sanders said yesterday, would eliminate choice in health care options that unions have long fought for. So even union members, they're like, I know we've long been the party of unions, but no more, sorry. And they're all on board with that. So I think it's not just that they all are saying these pretty extreme things. It's that they are all doing it together, and there is no choice in the Democrat Party. If you vote Democrat, you are voting for an extreme candidate who espouses extreme views and extreme left socialist policies. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a story that came out yesterday. There have been a few offshoots of it about Facebook and bias on social media. Donald Trump Jr. Retweeted one of these where I guess the Women for Trump ad was deemed as too harsh for Facebook. Do you believe, and I know this is a major push by the Trump campaign and by the RNC, Women for Trump. It was launched if I remember right, a few weeks ago. Big push by Laura Trump. Do you think this is bias from Facebook and bias from social media targeting, the Women for Trump portion of the campaign?
Well, and if I could add a little more context there, they claim that the issue there is that you were potentially leaving people out by only saying women for Trump, that you were then forcing people to make a decision about gender. That was one of the complaints.
I thought everyone can be a woman now. That's what I thought everyone was included in that.
Term.
Yeah.
But so I got to tell you, I thought there was a time when I thought, Facebook just got too big too fast and they didn't know how to control it. But when I saw things like shadow banning on Twitter, where our own RNC chairwoman, if you typed in her name, it wouldn't come up. When I saw things like Diamond and Silk, who have millions of followers on Facebook watching their shows, all of a sudden their page is shut down for no inexplicable reason. We see it all the time when we put through ads. They'll be blocked or turned down for silly reasons, and eventually they'll be put back up. But the idea is that they delay it just long enough that it's past the window when you wanted to have the ad. I think it's similar with this Women for Trump thing. We're trying to do this big. We're doing events in 15 states tomorrow to honor the 99th anniversary of the 19th Amendment passing, women suffragists. Great idea, great claim. We got a lot of great women who are coming out to help us with all those events. And isn't it interesting that Facebook decides that this is the time that they are going to draw a flag on our posts or ads about these events? And I have a feeling everything will be resolved a few hours after the events end. I mean, it's those kinds of things that we see that makes you say, what is actually happening over there? This is too much of a coincidence at this point, that it's not coincidental. And the problem is, and as we say all the time, as I think you probably heard last week, we pulled our ads on Twitter, and it was after they banned Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader's political Twitter account. And we have not given our money back to Twitter, and the reason being because average Americans don't get a blue check mark next to their name. There are people all over social media who are having their rights to free speech suppressed, not for any true violation of the code of conduct. And they don't have any recourse because they don't have millions of followers or millions of emails that they can go and get the word out to people.
Right.
And so the onus is on the leaders of the party, and I think the president is a great champion for this, to call attention to it, to hold these social media companies, but really they're more than that. I mean, Google has a lot of information on every American, as does Facebook, and to hold them accountable, to say what is really happening here, and you need to prove to us that you are doing everything in your power to be fair and objective arbiters and not subjective. And so far, they have not risen to the occasion.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Talk a little bit about Women for Trump, and you know, there have been a few articles that have come out, specifically here in Texas, about Republicans losing and the president losing support among suburban women, or at least that there is a cause for concern for suburban women who are not supporting Trump or who may be on the fence. What would you say to women across the state of Texas? And it probably applies to the entire nation, but what do you say to women about supporting this president?
Well, first of all, as we know, the mainstream media works overtime to try and make their wishes come true. And I think they would love for it to be true that President Trump does not enjoy the support, not just of women, but of Americans all across this country. And we know from 2016 that's simply not the case. But what we see in the results of President Trump, I mean, we have more women in the workforce than ever before in our country. And that's because there's opportunity and there's options, and women, as well as men, but across the spectrum, all ages are saying, now's my time to get in it. Maybe try a new job. Maybe try and take on a career goal that I have been putting on the sidelines because the economy hasn't been strong enough for me to take a risk. I've just had to be doing what I could to pay my bills. So the result of a strong economy says that more of us are getting in the game. But also, I just put a flag on this whole narrative that there isn't that support. More than 50% of our donors are women. More than 50% of our volunteers are women. By the way, more than 50% of our volunteers are millennials as well. The media would never let you believe that either. And as our chairwoman, Ronna McDaniel, loves to point out, that President Trump overwhelmingly won the support of women in rural America, which, newsflash to the mainstream media, most of us come from rural America. Where I come from, a suburb of Kansas City, Missouri, the mainstream media would call that actually rural America if you looked at the numbers.
Sure.
So I think they're trying to make something that is not so much so, and it's incumbent on us to push back and say we will not be beholden to your preferred narrative, because the results of this administration are helping us. They're helping us at our kitchen tables, in our communities, in our country, and really around the world. And so that's a big thing that we're doing at the RNC in conjunction with the president's campaign, with the Women for Trump Coalition, is to go out and empower women, not just with information and the facts to push back against the false narrative, but to remind them that they're not alone. Oftentimes, if you turn on the media, the TV, you feel like you're by yourself in your thoughts. And we saw that in 2016. There were a whole lot of people who weren't saying much. We weren't responding to polls. We weren't putting Trump yard signs out because we thought we were the only ones. And lo and behold, we were all in it together, and we just didn't know because the media wanted us to believe otherwise. Yeah. So that's a big part of what we're doing, is getting these neighborhood gatherings, our MAGA meetups together. It's really fun to see so many of these women doing what we do well, which is women are just really good at getting together with friends, and they're organizing on their own. We love it when we hear the information that they're saying, I know you didn't put out a call for volunteers, but we went ahead and got folks together and we went out and registered voters and then went and grabbed lunch. And it's been really fun and motivating for all of us to know that the true spirit of America is alive and well and appreciates what President Trump has done and wants to keep America great.
Yeah, absolutely. Visiting with RNC Deputy Communications Director Cassie Smedile. Cassie, tell us about the big fundraising haul for the RNC in July and what that means going forward for the 2020 election.
Oh, I just can't thank you enough for asking. So yesterday we announced that in July we hauled in $20.8 million just at the RNC alone. That's not even with the president's campaign, which they announced on the quarters. But $20.8 million, that's more than triple what our counterparts at the DNC did in July. And we use that money right away. I mean, that's large and small dollar donors that's getting reinvested right away into our data, into our grassroots, so that when we're out working with coalitions and in these battleground states, we're able to not just train volunteers, but give them useful information for how best to engage their friends and family and neighbors. Yes, talk about the results. Yes, talk about the benefits to our community, but also to say, you know, in your particular neighborhood, the number one topic you can talk about is the economy. But in 2 neighborhoods down or a zip code over, it's actually education and school choice. And we cater our trainings based on data, and we hold our trainings in certain areas based on the data. And so being able to have such incredible support from everyday Americans means that we're able to continue to forge ahead to reelect President Trump, but also get more Republicans in Congress to support the policies and the priorities that Americans want us to support, not the socialist squad, not the big government, more taxing policies of today's Democrat Party. So all that's really important, and we love that we've gotten a surge of large dollar donors, but we also have gotten a surge of small dollar donors. Since President Trump was elected, well more than 1 million new small dollar donors. That's another thing you don't hear on the mainstream media. They don't want you to believe that there's any new support for the president, but we see it every day. And we love to have it, and we love to engage folks and get them involved.
Very good. RNC Deputy Communications Director Cassie Smedile, appreciate you joining us today. It's been a pleasure, and I'm sure we'll visit again in the future.
Look forward to it. And if you want to get involved, GOP.com, click on volunteer.
All right. Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. That's Cassie Smedile here on the Chad HD Show, KFYO.